to basically come out of screen sharing, and I'm going to hand you over to Steve Duncan from Visit Scotland. So we're delighted to have you along this afternoon, Steve. So I'm just going to pop out, and if you want to then share your screen, we'll take it from there.
That's great. Thanks very much, Fergus. Right, just sharing the screen. Just wait for the magic to happen. Can everyone see that okay?
Looking good. Yep.
Yeah, happy with that. Great, okay. Thanks very much. No, so I was wondering what you were doing there, Fergus.
Sorry, I was just taking a wee photograph. We tend to put some wee things on LinkedIn and just get a wee bit of sort of coverage on the programme and share that. So apologies.
Not a problem, not a problem. Just want to say thanks very much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. This is going to be a very quick canter through some slides I've pulled together, which really just gives a bit of information about the underpinnings for our Scotland is Calling global campaign, a bit of information about Scotland is Calling, some examples of how we're promoting great outdoors and what we're doing within visitscotland.com as well, and really just some information about how you can get involved as well. I have to apologise in advance because some of the slides have quite full information within them, but my view is that some of these slides might be quite useful as for your own purposes going forward. So apologies for that. Just a little bit of scene setting in terms of our recovery goals and our strategic objectives. Throughout the pandemic, our role has really been about keeping Scotland top of mind. So we did a lot of activity around making sure that people were still aware of Scotland throughout the pandemic, so that when the time was right, we could then turn that interest into trips. And although much of our activity was Dream Now, Travel Later, we've taken every opportunity to make sure that we're driving visits and bookings where we could. The domestic market has been a key focus for us for early recovery, and Scotland has remained in the top 3 UK destinations through 2020 and 2021, largely competing with the southwest and the southeast of England. And we can see that interest in our website traffic, with domestic users being higher than in 2019. And we seem to have a younger demographic using the site now, so there seems to be a bit of an audience shift. What we're also seeing in our traffic, in our own traffic, sorry, and engagement levels and Google Trends and data shared with likes of Expedia and Booking.com is an increasing number of lookers and bookers for Scotland. So we're quite buoyed by that, that interest level. In terms of our brand, this is obviously very important. So how will we stand out in a very competitive marketplace as a result of the pandemic? At the heart of our Scotland brand, we're a nation of storytellers, and coupled with our iconic landscapes, history and heritage, we offer visitors a powerfully enriching personal experience. What we need to do, though, is we need to balance our remarkable history and heritage with the modern and vibrant aspects of today's Scotland. And I think adventure and outdoor activities is one way that we can really show this well. What we also need to bear in mind is that consumers are now being driven more by greater social purpose, and we need to make sure that they realise what kind of nation we are, and hopefully they'll share our values. And by joining us in Scotland, we'll show them that they can make a difference to themselves, to Scotland and the planet by treading lightly, which is a reference to our responsible tourism campaign, which we've been running for the last few years. So insight-driven marketing is obviously very important to us, but we need to have a good idea of what the global picture is looking like. And as I said earlier on, the marketplace has never been so competitive. With so much time spent at home, there's a strong desire for travel, perhaps also raising expectations about what a holiday should deliver. And there are also some interesting plans that we need to look out for. So for instance, it looks as though we're likely to see younger travellers travelling first and travelling further and spending more. So Generation Z or Gen Z and buzz seekers are the two key markets that we're looking at, especially with the Scotland is Calling campaign. Gen Zs are those kind of born in the late 90s, and the buzz seekers are kind of aged between 16 to 34. So we're looking at a much younger demographic than we previously would have done. And we see consumers spending money where the mood is, which is a lovely saying. And they are traveling with much greater social purpose. They want to travel better and they want to make more informed choices. The other thing that we're noticing as well is the pandemic has driven dramatic changes in the media landscape, and there's greater divergence in media consumption across age groups. For example, 79% of commercial media time for 60 to 34s for our buzz seeker audience is now spent with digital media. So that's something we need to account for when we plan our activity. Some insights and trends. Our insights team has been really busy looking at visitor data throughout the pandemic, and we obviously want to base our Scotland is Calling global campaign on the best research foundations we can. There's also some really good information about COVID-19 visitor insights on visitscotland.org, should you wish to look at those yourself. What we are seeing is that the domestic staycation market is going to be fundamentally important for 2022, and that was before we had the Russia-Ukraine war over in the east there. So it's possibly even more important now. I guess time will tell. Scotland is the second most popular domestic destination for summer 22, which is fantastic news. And we're also likely to see higher proportion of Scots residents holidaying in Scotland, and families and higher earners are likely to take more leisure trips. But we shouldn't discount retirees, as they're also likely to holiday more in Scotland as well. Incidentally, I should say that the international inbound forecast on the slide there, that's pre the Russia-Ukraine war, so it may have shifted a bit. So it's just something to bear in mind. There's also a number of trends that we maybe need to bear in mind more. I've highlighted a few that our insights team have pulled together. I particularly like epications and GOAT, which has been identified by Expedia. So it looks as though people are looking to have those sort of bucket list type experiences, which again, we maybe need to be ready for as well. So on to Scotland is Calling. It launched very recently, actually 9th of March, and it's our new 8.5 million global campaign that will feature a number of destinations, which I'll show you shortly. Excuse me just a moment. There is a video within the slide deck here, but I'm not going to tempt fate and try and play it because I think I might come unstuck. But I've shared a document with Fergus, which has got some useful links within it. And within that, there are links to the videos, so you can watch those at your leisure. We did toy with, just on the video itself, we did toy with adding a voiceover to it, but actually opted instead to go with a catchy song, which really reflects the sort of emotional and experiential connectedness we're aiming to achieve with Scotland is Calling. When you play it, you might recognise it as a James Blunt song, but we wanted to kind of Scotify it a bit more. So we had Cameron Barnes of Red Hot Chili Peppers record a more Scottish version. So please play it, but good luck getting the song out of your head when you do play it, because it is very catchy. So yeah, interested in any feedback if you have any as well. Of course, it's really important that we have consistent messaging across all of Scotland is Calling activity, and our multimedia team has been beavering away over the last 12 months, capturing new images that really reflect the emotional and experiential connectedness I mentioned just there. We're trying to capture the essence of how the visitor feels when they're actually on their Scottish holiday, and I hope some of the images that you can see on the slide there reflect that. And obviously equality, diversity and inclusivity is very important as far as that's concerned as well. What I should say is that many of these images are available for you to download from our digital media library. So if you don't yet have an account for that, by all means, please register. It only takes a few minutes to register for an account, and it's free. So that's a resource there for you to use should you wish. And alongside the imagery, it's really important that our campaign creative reflects these values as well. What we've tried to do is use that and have these emotional headlines that really connect people, or give them this sense that they could see themselves in that picture, if that makes sense. The new campaign guidelines are available to download from our digital media library, and there's another link within that useful links document that I've shared with Fergus. So again, if you want to use any of our campaign creative within your own activity, then we'd be delighted that you would do that, and that is a possibility if you want to download that kit. This infographic just really gives an of the destinations that we're actually targeting and where we're actually aiming to run activity. There's a lot more information about the Scotland is Calling broader activity, and Fergus again has a full deck really just showing exactly what we're going to do and in which destination we're going to do it. So there's a lot of detail within that if you want to learn a bit more. Because time's short, I didn't think it would be a good idea just to go through every piece of that. But it's well worth a look. It's a big campaign, and I think it's going to perform really well. Supporting all this paid for activity, we also have our own channels within Visit Scotland. And we'll use them very much to highlight Scotland is Calling as well to our already engaged audiences. So within our organic social, there'll be a lot of activity taking place over the next 6 months or so. But in addition to that, we've also got some influencer activity keyed up. We've got Rod. Let me introduce you to these two fine people. We've got Rod, who's quite an influence within TikTok. He's got 2.1 million followers. Most of those followers are largely US based, and he's very much speaking to Gen Z and millennials. So he's ideal for what we're trying to do with Scotland is Calling. And in Moya, her audience is more sort of UK based, 57% UK and 10% USA. But interestingly, her engagement rate is over 20%, which is fantastic. Our benchmark for influencers is around 3%. So she's got some really well-engaged followers. She's going to be doing some Edinburgh, Glasgow city break stuff, looking at themes around sustainability, veganism, art galleries, food and drink. And then on the email marketing side of things, we're going to have a lot of activity going out, supporting Scotland is Calling with personalised emails based on customer preferences to drive engagement and to stimulate lifelong love affairs with Scotland. And just on consumer PR, this is more earned activity, but the PR team is going to be very busy supporting the campaign as well through PR events, press trips, through media communications, including our monthly media updates that go to loads and loads of different journalistic and media contacts. And they'll also be looking at publishing and brand partnerships to upweight the messaging and reach as many people as we possibly can through the campaign, and obviously stimulate bookings to visit Scotland in the forthcoming season. Responsible tourism is fundamentally important, and I think we've seen that over the last couple of years, and how important it is that we actually make sure we focus on that. Responsible tourism will integrate into Scotland is Calling as well, and this very much picks up on visitors travelling with social purpose, which I mentioned earlier on. We're working closely with key partners as part of the National Visitor Management Group on developing the proposition, campaign messaging and creative, taking on board key learnings from the activity we ran in 2021. Not only do we want visitors to act responsibly though, in environmental terms, we also want them to act responsibly for their own safety and that of others, which is a critical aspect of what adventure tourism is. And especially in light of the very sad incidents we saw in Loch Lomond last year. So when we promote outdoor activities and adventures, we usually encourage visitors to book experiences with operators, both from a safety point of view, but also from an economic perspective as well. And we also look at how we promote safety messaging through our partners. So for instance, Mountaineering Scotland runs their Think Winter activity at the moment, and then their Sofa to Summit spring campaign, which we push through visitscotland.com as well. The infographic gives some good examples of what we actually delivered last year. And what I particularly like is the fact that the water safety activity information was shared by 106 partner websites. That really shows how we're all working together to achieve the same goal and make sure that we're getting those messages out, keeping people safe, and make sure they're having fun. And just a little bit on responsible tourism for 2022. The partnerships team's busy beavering away on developing and delivering this campaign as we speak, and they expect to go live by the end of this month. What we're going to focus on is spoilers and spoiler alerts. The picture at the top, it really just gives an idea of what we did last year. It was really injecting humour and just trying to educate people sort of sensitively and really bring them along with us. And we're going to do the same again this year. It's very much a humorous, but there's a lot of activity coming up from the end of this month and then throughout the summer period. As I say, it's very much going to focus on spoilers and spoiler alerts. So looking forward to that. Again, humour is very much front and centre for this one. Just moving now to how we're raising awareness of Scotland's outdoor experiences and the adventure sector in particular. So starting off at a sort of higher level, I suppose, if you want to look at it in that way. In the US, we've been working with some high audience partner platforms over the last couple of years, and with some really good success. So in 2020, we ran a really good piece of activity with Matador Travel Network and REI, which is the biggest outdoor retailer in the US. So on the bottom left, you'll see 3 uses of water, which featured wild swimming with Callum McLean, who's prominent wild swimmer, and water sports at Galloway Activity Centre. But it was also seen in the context of other things you can see and do on a trip in Scotland. So it's really trying to position, all these experiences together as part of a whole holiday. We created 3 short social videos that generated over 500,000 views, and REI actually ran some in-store events during Scotland Week, trying to showcase Perthshire and their endless adventures, though unfortunately, or sadly, it had to be paused due to the pandemic. Over on the right-hand side, we've got Matador Network and a video they created called Not Your Grandfather's Scotland. That's well worth a watch. It's really good, although the guy's a wee bit annoying because he's American. But it achieved fantastic views, and it just shows Scotland in a really different context, which I think is really, it was very much targeting visitors that wanted a wanted a Scotland experience, but maybe a new, different, adventurous style of holiday in Scotland. So it's well worth a watch, and it's achieved some great views. So really pleased with how that's worked out. And then over on the left-hand top, we've got activity underway with the Afar platform with an interactive map which shows sort of iconic Scottish experiences that you can undertake, specifically set for the US market. But it also features, as you can see there, what you can maybe expect from an adventure holiday in Scotland. And we're expecting the results from this at some point in April. So that's really set the scene in terms of on an international level. Also internationally, but also in a UK level, we're working quite closely with National Geographic. And although we deliver about 40 million web pages as visitscotland.com in a year, in internet terms, our site is quite small when you look at that sort of big internet fishbowl. So what we try to do is work with bigger partner platforms such as Nat Geo, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Matador, NBC, and Afar, that really allows us to extend our reach considerably, and also gives us access to new audiences at that sort of see and think stage of the customer journey. So this National Geographic activity, it speaks to an audience that's more predisposed to adventure experiences, adventure travel, though this particular piece of activity was more focused on holistic experiences in specific destinations like the Scottish Borders and Badenoch. In terms of results, it's performing really well. It's kind of still running, although it's coming towards the end of its run. But dwell time on content has been fantastic at 3 minutes, which Nat Geo say is quite uncommon for them. They usually see their content as quick view and go. So it really shows how this content is engaging the audience and how engaged the audience is with Scotland. And then from the start of the global campaign to the 8th of February, the campaign has actually delivered 19.9 million impressions. So it's big reach. Just very quickly, this is maybe familiar to a lot of you because perhaps some businesses actually took part, but we ran a Great Days Out campaign from October through to mid-February, and it performed really well. It was really devised to stimulate off-season spend, I guess, and really support industry, and through the actual COVID period, and I guess over the Omicron issues as well. So we're really pleased with how that's performed. It was very much focused on the Scots audiences, but active and adventure experience is very much part of this, alongside day tours and visit attraction experiences. And we've had some really nice feedback from businesses as well, as you can see there too. So that's another way that we're helping to support the outdoors and adventure sector. Water wellness campaign. This is more specifically something I worked on last summer, and it was a small campaign with an overall spend of about £15,000. Alongside the creation of video assets and website content, which I worked on directly, we also ran a small media campaign, which I'm happy to say over-delivered on forecasts for impressions. For web page landings, I think we were about 9,700 against 7,800, and a cost per land of 47 pence versus 58. So it really highlights that our interest. It highlights the interest our audience has with this type of content, and we work very closely with Basque and Shark Scotland, Shane there in Oban, for the paddleboarding video, and with Willowgate activities in Perthshire, and a local group of wild swimmers for the wild swimming video in Loch Faskley. I'm really grateful for that assistance. As you can see there's some really high view rates, especially for the longer videos. So really pleased about that. Just a little bit about how we actually develop content within Visit Scotland as well. So I work on quite a lot of the outdoors content within Visit Scotland. And it's very much a case that we use science to underpin what we're actually doing. So what we do is very much based on raw search engine and keyword insights to make sure that it's going to index well and people are going to find it. So we're very careful about how we actually build and make sure we weave in keywords to the meta descriptions and to improve the discoverability of our content. And on top of that, we also review and refine the content to make sure that it's still achieving what we want it to. And we also write it with accessibility and plain English in mind, so that it's easy to read and understandable. Alongside the 50 web pages we actually have on .com and the specific outdoor active sport blog post, we do an awful lot of weaving of outdoors and adventure across much more of the content within visitscotland.com. so that, as I said earlier on, it's more about promoting a holistic visitor experience rather than having silos of adventure and food and drink and such like. So it's very much how we work is trying to weave adventure, the great outdoors activities into more of what we do. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see some examples of e-newsletters that we just sent out in the last week or so. Outdoors and active was very much a focus and feature within our marketing calendar, content calendar for February. And these have just gone out to support that at a time when people are obviously at the thinking, planning stage of the customer journey. So we want to try and encourage them to take outdoors experiences. The aforementioned Visit Scotland marketing calendar. I think this is a useful document to share because it really just sets out what we're going to do for content development in the year ahead and how we're actually going to promote that through our own channels of organic and paid social and email marketing, and also through our PR channels, PR activity as well. So I think it's worth sharing that so you have sight of it and you can maybe look at how that might work with your own content going forward. I'm more than happy to have discussions about any of that as well. And this just really gives some ideas of some of the content that I and others have been putting together. One of the things that I have picked up on is that we feel that we're speaking to quite a lot of new entrants when it comes to adventure and outdoors. So the beginners and dabblers, if you like, and they probably need a bit more support and information. So we've created quite a lot of beginner content, two of which you can actually see on the screen there. There are more. We've got mountain biking, we've got Monroe bagging, golf, we've got 10 cycle routes, we've got long distance walking routes. So I think that really just gives people an opportunity to have an accessible adventure. But there's a whole lot more content that we're actually producing across the great outdoors. And then coming up, looking ahead and looking what I'm going to be working on the next wee while. The cycling side of things is by far and away the biggest thing I'm working on at the moment. If you're not familiar with it, the Cycling Worlds will be coming to Scotland in August 2023. This will be the biggest cycling event in history, and Scotland is the first ever nation to actually host all 13 World Championships at the same time. So we're really excited about it. What we're doing at the moment is we're working with a creative agency to develop a compelling cycling tourism proposition, which sets us apart from our competitors and can be believed by both consumers and this industry alike. And we're also looking at how we internally look to promote cycling tourism through our own channels, as I mentioned earlier, in the run up to, during and beyond the World Championships. But also within cycling, we've created a really good cycling routes map working very closely with Sustrans Scotland. At the moment, I think it has about 52 routes on it, but we're adding more to that, including the John Muir Way, and I think it's being called the Far North Way, which is going to be Inverness to John O'Groats, which Sustrans are just working on at the moment. In addition to that, there'll be some new day trip routes added as well. And then I'll be running a small paid social campaign going live towards the end of March to drive visitors to that map. So that's quite exciting. On top of that, we've also got the ScotRail Highland Explorer carriages, and we'll be running some paid promotion to raise the profile of that service. It's a pilot project running between Glasgow and Oban, and the carriages take up to 20 bikes and riders. So we're looking at how we can improve the awareness of that, probably around the west coast of Scotland, especially around the sort of Glasgow area, working with Reach Media titles, which is the Daily Record, Edinburgh Live, Glasgow Live, that sort of stuff, but also paid social campaign as well. So that should be live in April as well. In terms of content updates, the cycling landing page was updated recently, but we will be updating the mountain biking landing page quite soon. And I recently published a gravel biking post on visitscotland.com as well. So lots going on in the cycling world, which is really exciting. And then we're on to the outdoors tourism strategy. I'm sure Stuart, as the project lead, is keeping you all up to speed with that. And I have to say, I'm really excited to see this launch because it's really going to help to steer outdoors and adventure activity going forward. Partnership side of things, I've got colleagues that are working with outdoor manufacturer, Finisterre, on photo shoot and some content, which we're very excited about. We're hoping to get some coverage within their own site. And I'm also hoping to work much more closely with Ordnance Survey, and in particular to use some of their 100 ambassadors to highlight Scotland's outdoors more. And on the new product side, if you guys have ideas, or if you have anything you feel that we should know about, then please tell us, because that's when we can start to then think about how we build content around that. The last bit I'm just going to cover is how you could potentially get involved. And these are just some of the ways you can actually look at, and I've probably touched on some of these already just throughout the presentation. Delighted if you can help us to extend the reach of Scotland's Calling. Again, I think if we can all present a unified message, it gives visitors and consumers a much clearer idea of what Scotland is and what Scotland can offer. The other thing I would mention is, by all means, if you're looking for any visitor insights, there's tons of really good research information on visitscotland.org, or by all means, you can reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. But there's some good ideas here that you can look at if you're looking to try and get involved and so I guess mutually support each other across our activity. The marketing calendar I mentioned earlier on. We want to hear from you if you want to, or you think you can contribute content in line with our marketing calendar themes, but also if the content aligns with our Scotland is Calling emotional approach. And if you have high quality imagery or video, we'd be delighted if you would upload that to our digital media library for us to use. Good for you because it then helps to give you a bit more profile and awareness, but good for us because we're always looking for new images to help support the marketing that we're doing. And then the last bit flummoxes me a wee bit. I've got to be honest, admit, cross-posting is not something I'm that familiar with. But the next few slides really just give you an idea of how to actually cross-post or develop a cross-posting relationship and cross-post videos. The information has been compiled by our organic social team. And Fergus, as I mentioned earlier on, has a copy of my slides, which you can share. So you can see the full instructions on how to set up a cross-post if you want to do that. And if you need any help, by all means, email me and I'll run it past our in-house experts and we can support you on that as well. So there's this slide here that just gives a bit of information about, I guess, the benefits of it. And then these next 3 slides really just give you an idea of how to set a cross-posting relationship up, and the mechanics of how you actually do it and how you start to cross-post videos. So, and that is a quick run through. I hope that's been okay.